Before beginning the lesson, I just want to emphasize that it is very important for us to know where our quadrants are, what the signs for those quadrants are, and the difference between clockwise and counterclockwise. So, clockwise, you have to think about moving the direction a clock would move. So if we're starting on quadrant 1, which is positive, positive, and I say move clockwise, we know that I need to go down to quadrant 4, then quadrant 3, then quadrant 2, back to quadrant 1. So moving in this motion would be considered clockwise. Now, if I was starting at quadrant 2, for example, and asked to move counterclockwise, I now need to move backwards the way a clock would move. So now from starting at 2, I would go down to 3, 4, 1, and back to 2. Is a counterclockwise motion. And whenever we rotate in intervals of 90 degrees, and each interval is one quadrant. So here we are going to learn about rotating about the origin. So I'm going to start with an example of -6, 2. Now, when we are rotating about the origin, it is important to recognize what direction we are going in and the degrees that we are moving. Here, we are going to rotate 90 degrees clockwise about the origin. An important side note that I need everyone to remember is 90 degrees, we're going to flip the numbers. 180 degrees, they stay the same. 270 degrees, we flip the numbers. And 360 degrees, they stay the same. So it's flip, stay, flip, stay. Something very important that you need to memorize when doing rotation. Now going back to the problem where it says rotate 90 degrees clockwise, I'm going to rewrite -6, 2, and since 90 degrees states to flip, I'm going to flip my numbers without any signs just yet. So now I'm writing 2, 6. Being that it says clockwise, I need to figure out which rotation am I using. So since I'm using clockwise, I'm moving about the way a clock would move. I need to figure out which quadrant -6, 2 is in, and we know that it's quadrant 2 because of the signs. And being that it's moving 90 degrees clockwise, I know that it would end up in quadrant 1. So therefore, my final answer is 2, 6. So it's just important to remember that we need to figure out where we're starting, where we're ending, and whether we flip or keep our numbers. So here I'm going to work on another example, -6, -5. And now we are going to rotate 270 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. Here again, I'm going to write the side note so that you can remember what the rotations are and whether we're flipping or staying the same. So for 90 degrees, we flip our numbers. 180, they stay the same. 270, we flip our numbers. 360, we stay the same. Now this is strictly just for the numbers. And since we're doing 270, we know that it's a flip. So I'm going to rewrite -6, -5, and now flip the numbers without writing any signs just yet, because I need to figure out where my signs are. So being that -6, -5 starts in quadrant 3, I know that I'm moving counterclockwise, meaning the opposite of a clock. 270 means I'm rotating 3 times. So here I'm drawing out my quadrant, and I'm writing out the quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. And since I'm starting in quadrant 3, moving counterclockwise, I need to count 3 steps. 1, 2, and 3, and I end up in quadrant 4. So I know my symbols for quadrant 4 is positive, negative. So my final answer is +5, -6.